What a weird time, right? I mean, I did not start this semester thinking that we would have sort of the chaos that we've had. I knew this was had the possibility of being, an interesting semester for investing, but I will be perfectly honest, I had no idea um, that this was going to happen. I mean, this thing in Venezuela was definitely disruptive, and now going to war with Iran and oil prices going nuts. I had no idea that this is what we could expect. But hey, what a great time to learn. Um, so if we just take a look at what's really been going on in the S&P in the last month, we're down 2.6%, and which is a lot, right? And if we look over the last 6 months, it's still up. But man, that's a pretty ugly chart, right? If we just look at roughly when the class was starting, who would have thought, right? And so the reason why I'm doing this is I just did the first trade in my portfolio. And so the reason why I want to bring this up is that, this is, sort of a time where as investors, we need to kind of step back and assess, right? And, everybody's got this, we buy and we hold. It's kind of like that's true with the vast majority of your portfolio, assuming you've got high quality stuff in your portfolio, then of course you take a very long term buy and hold approach. But there's also cases where you maybe own something and you sort of take a look and you're like, well, maybe that was more transactional. And so for me, one of the things that was in my portfolio that was sort of transactional was Macy's. And so I sold Macy's today. And I sold Macy's at a significant loss. It had been weighing my portfolio down, and I was having a really hard time continuing to love Macy's. And I bought it last year. It's in my personal account as well. I bought it because they've got a great management team, and there was a certain amount of excitement going into or high expectation, I guess, going into the Christmas season, and that people were feeling pretty good, and I sort of coupled that with the fact that we've got a bunch of tax cuts that are going to be coming online, and first quarter is when most people get tax refunds. I don't. I haven't gotten a tax refund in more than 20 years, but maybe that's just poor planning on my part. But most people get their money back, and I assumed based on what I saw 6 months ago, you had consumer confidence that was relatively high and coming back, and there was a certain amount of confidence in the market, and there was a certain amount of resilience as well, right? And then I also thought, well, gosh, wouldn't it be great if the Supreme Court came out and ruled like they just did, right? That these tariffs were illegal, and that those tariffs would go away, and then that would bring prices down. And I thought, well, gosh, all of these things, like if all the stars align, man, owning Macy's could just be brilliant. Well, the Supreme Court did come out and say, yep, those tariffs are illegal. You can't do that. But then obviously the president came right back out again and put a different tariff in place. That's shorter term, but they are taking, they're all over trying to get these tariffs back in place, which is incredibly disruptive for the markets. And so that was, my thesis was, hey, those tariffs are going to go away. Prices will come back down a little bit, even if it's just 3, 4, 5, 8, 10%. It doesn't take much for us to get excited about shopping. And but the problem is now we've got consumer confidence is, you know, fallen off a cliff. Michigan put out their consumer confidence report today, and it was the survey that they do every month. And they essentially are trying to gauge how are people feeling, and it tends to be an indicator of how people are going to spend. And the numbers that came out today were just horrible. And it was interesting is that half of the survey was done before we went to war with Iran, and the other half was after. And so the before, it looked like there was a little bit of confidence. People were like, okay, maybe things are going to get better. And then after the war, it's kind of like it just completely plummeted. So for that reason, I looked at it, I'm like, I'm out, and I'm not gonna own it. And um, and so I will probably just sit on the cash a little bit. So I've got almost 10,000 in cash on Wall Street. Sometimes they call that dry powder, right? I've got a little bit of dry powder in case something presents itself in the market. But I'm looking at everything else that I've got. So I've got like EDO, which is Indonesian ETF. I don't care. It's down. It's going to be just fine. Flynn Indian. I don't care. It's going to be just fine. And then I've got a couple bond funds. I've got JEPI. I own JEPI personally at a much lower rate. I'm crushing it on JEPI. But this is also sort of a income fund. And so I've got less concern about JEPI. Love Coke, love Microsoft, love Netflix. I don't love Oracle. I like Oracle. Love Walmart. Won't shop there, but I love the company. Incredibly well managed. So I look at my portfolio in general and I'm like, there's a lot of diversification and I love the companies. And therefore, I'm not going to make any further changes. Unless something extraordinary happens, I think this will probably be the portfolio that I have until the end of the semester. You should be doing the same. So those of you, there's still a bunch of you, that have not invested your money, and so I think it's time you take a look at deploying some of your money. Now's a great time. The markets are down a little bit, but be very, very selective. If you've got cash in your account, take a look at, is there something you should be buying? Look at your portfolio. Is there something you should be selling? And did you buy it as transactional, or did you buy it because you just think for the next 20 years this company is going to be brilliant? So that's all this is. I just wanted to kind of pop in and say, hey, I did the first trade. Maybe you should take a look at as well. So today, when you get ready to do your chat GPT, what happened in the marketplace that could impact my portfolio? If you see something that just doesn't feel great, maybe then, that becomes an opportunity for you to go in and reassess. So that's all. And what a great time to learn how to invest. Much more exciting in the middle of chaos when everybody's portfolio is down, and because then you have to think a little bit harder. These last couple of years, when I during these classes, everybody's up 2, 3, 5, 8, 10%, and they feel like they're the smartest people in the room. And I remember when I was at Morgan Stanley, they used to say, do not confuse a bull market for brains. And so that's what we had. So now, this we may have a longer term issue here. We'll have to see what happens, but I think we'll keep talking about it. Hope everybody's doing great. If you've got questions, you know how to find me. I am super easy to reach. I wish more students would text me with questions as opposed to being confused. So hope all is well. If you need anything, hit me up. Peace.